Chapter 8, Consumer Strategies. Consumer purchases refer to the things that we use in daily living, like clothes, food, electronics, and appliances. You live with these things and use them daily. They reflect your lifestyle choices, your tastes, and how you prioritize spending your money. Consumer purchases should fit into your budget, meaning you shouldn't spend more than you make if you can help it. Recall we learned about budgeting so that we can make the right decisions when consuming, and how to finance our consumption without going into debt or creating extra costs of borrowing. Shopping is a process. For some of us, we enjoy it, and for others, we find it cumbersome. In addition to deciding what you want, you have to decide where to buy it from. Are you going to buy it individually or in bulk? Are you buying certain brands or going generic? And how will you pay for it? It's helpful to recognize the difference between consumer goods, which are goods bought and used by consumers that last a short time, like toothpaste, groceries, and clothing, whereas durable goods are tangible products that can be stored or inventoried and can last 3 or more years. Here we see a bike, a microwave, and refrigerator, for example. Purchasing decisions require you to make choices because you're limited by how much money or income you have to spend. Some consumer purchases are quick to make decisions on, like groceries, whereas larger, more expensive purchases require a more in-depth decision-making process. The process you see here has 3 phases: pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase. We buy things hoping to solve a need in our lives. So let's use an example of buying a laptop for school as we go through this process. There's no one-size-fits-all laptop that meets every student's needs. It really depends on their situation and their preferences. So a student who is majoring in art may likely need a different kind of computer than a student majoring in business. So that's where it's helpful when you are identifying the product that you identify what attributes are most important to you and be specific about it so that you can compare the attributes across different companies. Doing so will help you avoid buyer's remorse, which is when you regret at not making a better purchase with your money. In addition to identifying the product and the specific attributes you want, you need to identify the market. So this is where you'll compare prices, delivery options, the convenience, and the companies or competitors who offer the different types of laptops. You'll also need to identify financing. Do you have enough money to buy the laptop outright, or do you have to figure out a way to do like a payment plan? And some stores offer that option. Now, as you buy or you make the purchase, you'll be specific on the kinds of color or style. I remember when I bought my first laptop, I really wanted it in a particular color and size. I didn't want the heaviest laptop. I wanted something light that was easy to transport, but it needed to have enough computing power to do the things I needed for school. Now, in Western culture, here where it says negotiate, we don't often negotiate product price or costs with a store, but we can negotiate within ourselves. Like, do I need all the bells and whistles? Can I live with a smaller version or lower quality or different brand than others? And sometimes different companies offer package deals where you can buy a laptop with some accessories, or they might offer a sale or a discount available that you want to shop for. So there are certain times of the year where there may be promotions or deals as it relates to laptops. And then after you buy your laptop, there's the post-purchase, so maintaining it, making sure it's kept well. You might want to buy additional warranties, a case so that it's protected in case you drop it or it gets bumped, a laptop bag for it, and then you'll need to make sure you know what to do if you're dissatisfied with the product. Perhaps the laptop isn't turning on like it's supposed to, or perhaps the battery life is not what the manufacturer claimed it to be. You may have to go back and get something fixed. Is that something that can be fixed through the store that you bought it, or does it have to go directly to the manufacturer? So there's some things to be aware of when you are making an investment in something like a laptop. So there are a number of consumer strategies you should be aware of because they can impact your decision making. Producers of products go to great expense to brand their products, and brand has a value. So you can see here on the right, I've got some examples of well-known brands and what they're worth. So branding's a unique identity associated with a product. And that identity comes with it trust and reputation. And so that value is very important to businesses. Now, as a consumer, we need to think about, well, how much does that brand matter to me? Do I have to buy Cheetos, or can I buy the generic version that's offered at Walmart? I didn't think I would like it, but my partner bought the generic Cheetos version, and it tastes pretty much the same. So we switched to generic and saved some money on chips. A common technique in grocery stores is that they'll put the brand name items at eye level and the generic towards the bottom, so that you're more likely to buy the branded, more expensive items. Another strategy to be aware of is price discrimination. So this is the practice of charging a different price for the same product when different consumers have a different need of that product. And this is most commonly seen with airlines and buying plane tickets. So if you needed to buy a plane ticket under short notice, you're going to be paying a lot more. If you plan well and buy your tickets well in advance, you'll likely see a cost savings on the price of the ticket. And then another strategy is the quantity discount. So that's where a lower per unit price is available for a higher volume purchase. So think Costco. So this is where you're buying in bulk, and when you buy a lot of toilet paper in bulk, the unit price is lower or cheaper. Now, an example where I can combine the branding with the quantity discount, for instance, is at Costco. They sell diapers by Huggies, and then they sell the Kirkland brand. Turns out the Kirkland brand is also made by Huggies. It's just branded Kirkland, and it's cheaper because of the brand and because of the quantity discount. So I buy my diapers in bulk for the Kirkland brand at Costco. As consumers, it's important to be aware of scams, which are fraudulent business activities that are intended to persuade a consumer, such as yourself, to give money or information and get nothing or little in return. A typical pattern, although the details vary, is that the fraud sets up a scenario that requires the victim to send money or share their financial or personal information like their bank account, social security, credit card numbers, which can then be used to access accounts. So keep in mind that businesses in general are not going to call you up or send you an email asking you to provide your information. Here are some quick tips on how to protect yourself from scams. Again, never give anyone personal or financial information if you're being asked for it over the phone or over the internet. When in doubt, contact the organization to verify that identity. I did that once when I got an email from my bank saying I needed to change my password. I called in and asked, did you really send me this? And it was a recommended security task that they wanted us to update our passwords. Get a second opinion, especially when advised to do costly repairs. When I got my first job and got dental insurance, I went to a new dentist and they gave me a really high quote to fix my fillings. So I went and got a second opinion, and the second dentist provided a much lower quote, and I ended up using them going forward. You can also check the credentials of prospective workers or service providers like the auto mechanics that you might use to fix your car. If you have doubts about a professional's credentials like an accountant, doctor, or architect, you can call the local professional society or trade group and ask about them and to see if there's any complaints against them. And then it's also helpful to get a written estimate that specifies the work to be done, materials, labor costs, when it's going to be done, and the price. And then you can always use that when shopping around as well. You can also ask the vendor for proof of insurance. Now, if you do get scammed, it's your civic duty to complain to your state's consumer division, and in some situations, the Federal Trade Commission. That way there can be increased awareness on the different frauds that are coming and can help warn other people. So now, a major purchase in your life that you are likely going to experience is buying a car. And when you buy that car may vary. For some folks, they buy a car while they're in high school, others during college. For me, I bought my first car after college because I was driving my parents' car throughout high school and college. It's helpful to understand what your financial situation and your needs are so that you can make the right decisions about when to buy a car and in what markets, whether you're buying new or used. And so, for instance, I bought a car a few years back and I had to take into consideration my situation and needs. So I had been working at MiraCosta for a couple of years now, and I see myself here long term, but my commute is quite long. So it's about 45 minutes to an hour with traffic each way. And so I needed to find a car that was good on gas mileage and was comfortable for long distance. So I ended up getting an electric vehicle because that's what I needed. So that's where it's helpful to understand why you're buying the car, what are your driving habits like, so that you can pick out the appropriate attributes that you need. Like I also have kids, so I had to think of like what vehicle would fit car seats and children. So for instance, if you know you're going to drive a lot and you care about the environment, the certain attributes related to gas mileage and maybe a hybrid or electric vehicle would be more important to you than someone, let's say, who is very outdoorsy and goes to the mountains a lot and needs like 4-wheel drive. So that would be more important. Think about what you're using the car for. Are you towing things? Do you need to carry a lot of stuff? Are you transporting people? And then identify which vehicles match those attributes. And so great resource to check out is Edmunds.com. And when you're in the website, they have an option called car comparisons, and they group the different types of vehicles that you might be looking for. So you can see here, you can compare SUVs, compare trucks, compare electric vehicles, compare hybrids, compare sedans. And then of course you can also like pick specific vehicles that you want to compare against. And I'm going to pick, small sedans. Let's start with that. And so you can see here is an example of comparing 4 different small sedans, and then you'll be able to see the rating by Edmunds, but then also different aspects of the car in terms of driving and comfort, the MPG, consumer ratings, what do the warranties look like, what features are available on the cars. So that's why it's helpful to identify the attributes that matter to you first so that you can weight which ones are more important to you. Because when you take a look at a tool like this that has the side-by-side comparison, it can feel very overwhelming when it has all these features. But here's the thing is, what if you don't care about cruise control, or it didn't matter if there was like folding rear seats or not? So having that list of attributes that matter to you first can help you focus on those pieces of information when you start to do your research on websites like this. And then there's identifying the market that you want to purchase from. Are you going to buy a new car or a used car? And so in my past, I have generally bought used cars, and I've bought several. It was only when I decided to go electric that I bought a new car. And there might be a variety of reasons that you choose new or used. But you want to take into account macroeconomic factors like inflation and interest rates. So when I bought my new electric vehicle, I was able to get a really good interest rate at that time, whereas the used market didn't have as good interest rates. And then, for instance, right now, interest rates are going up, which will also impact interest rates available for car loans when you're buying new or used. Used vehicles are oftentimes cheaper than new, and so you might be able to buy a used car outright with cash and not have to get a car loan. Another thing too is what's happening in the world. So for instance, during the pandemic, there was a semiconductor chip shortage, which impacted production on new vehicles. So there weren't as many new vehicles available for purchase. So that made it harder to find new models. And then because of that, the used market got really competitive, and used vehicles were being sold at a much higher price, and because there was so much demand. Over here on the right is a helpful checklist to check through when you are buying a used car. You can take a look at the exterior to see if there are any issues, because that might give you an idea of the kind of damage or use that the car has experienced. Similarly, you want to check out the interior and then check out the engine. It can be helpful to bring someone with you that has knowledge of cars to help you look at the vehicle that you're considering buying. I always did that. I always brought a friend or a parent that had more experience with cars to take a look at any used vehicle I was buying. Now, when buying a car, you need to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Car purchases usually require financing through a loan or a lease. And again, if you're buying a used car, so for instance, I bought a used car that was around $10,000. So I saved up and was able to buy that with cash because it was a smaller amount than, let's say, buying a car at $30,000. Like that would require a loan because I don't have $30,000 on hand. And then also, do you want to pay for a car full out in cash? Again, thinking about that $30,000 vehicle, can you put $10,000 for a down payment and get a competitive car loan with a low interest rate, and then use the $20,000 and invest that with a higher return rate that you can earn money on it. And that's why it's important to understand the APRs on loans that you're doing, as well as the APY or yields that you're earning on any of your investments. Now, you can get a car loan from a bank, credit union, consumer finance companies, or the manufacturers themselves. It's helpful to shop around. For instance, my current car that I bought, I ended up getting a car loan through a credit union because it was lower than what Tesla was offering. And in addition to looking at the different interest rates available, you want to consider the different maturities or the length of the car loan. Some financial experts recommend a 48-month or 4-year car loan for new cars. Note that the longer the loan terms come with higher interest rates, meaning you'll pay more for your automobile over the life of the loan. So when financing a vehicle, aim for the shortest term and the best interest rate you can get. One time when I was shopping for a car and negotiating pricing with the dealer, they were trying to convince me to buy an expensive priced car by changing the maturity. So they added a year, and then that made the monthly payment look lower. But mathematically, I would have been paying a lot more over time and accepting a higher price I was unwilling to pay. So we ended up not getting that vehicle, and I found a different one that I was more comfortable with purchasing in terms of my financial situation at the time. Another option is to lease a vehicle. Now, a car lease is a long-term rental agreement that has an option to buy out the car. So meaning at the end of the lease, you can buy the car outright for a certain amount that they've calculated on your contract. Or you can just return the vehicle and then decide what you want to do next. I did this once because I wanted to test out a hybrid vehicle. I didn't know if I would like it or not. So I did a lease at Lexus for a hybrid SUV. And I'm really glad I ended up doing the lease because after driving the car for 3 years, I realized I did not like the way that it drove. And so I was able to return the vehicle and then decide what I wanted to buy next for my family. Now, whether you decide to buy a car or lease a car, there are some factors to consider. Are you going to be driving the car a lot and putting a lot of wear and tear on it? Then you probably want to buy a car because leases have a limit on how many miles you can put on it on an annual basis. You can buy more mileage on the car, but if you end up going over that limit, you have to pay for every mile you went over. Do you like having a new car every few years? For some folks, that's why they will lease because they want to try out or they want to drive the newest cars on the market. And then some people like to own the car because they think that, well, later on I can always sell the car and get cash back through the equity that's earned on the car. But it's hard to know with the used car market how much that's going to be. It can be helpful to do a bit of research on the Kelley Blue Book to see what used cars are going for, just to see potentially what you could get back in a few years. But think of it more as an expense that you're going to use up rather than an asset like a home, which appreciates over time. And then once you're ready to purchase the car, so you've done your research, you've looked at your financing options, you've figured out which car you want, there's this thing called the manufacturer suggested retail price, or MSRP. That's the sticker price for that vehicle with those features. Be ready to negotiate with car dealers on the different options on the car, warranty, service, discounts, on routine maintenance, financing terms, rebates, trade-ins. There's a lot of pieces involved in negotiating on a vehicle. To help you as you negotiate, I always recommend writing down the items that you need to negotiate and keep it simple, right? Negotiate one thing at a time and settle on that before you go on to the next issue. And keep track of what you agreed to and what you've adjusted because each one affects the overall cost or package for you. Sometimes dealers will try to confuse you by combining pieces together, like warranty and the price, or certain features with rebates. So just you want to be careful, focus on the things that matter most to you because that's going to impact your cost, but also your experience of the vehicle. You want to be happy with your purchase. The more information you have, the better. And so that's why doing research on websites to see what the car is going for. So a website I like to use as well is TrueCar.com. And I'm on the used car side here, for instance, and you can see some vehicles, and you can narrow it down by the kind of car you want. And there's great filters to use. But for instance, you can see here it will rank and let you know how that price compares in your area. So you can see like these two vehicles here are considered a fair price, while this one's considered an excellent price. So you can get a sense of what's out there before you go in to negotiate with a dealer on something. Now, other things to consider are the operating costs for your car. That's the fuel, oil changes, tires, repair, maintenance. And then there's also the registration and insurance. So the more expensive your car is, or the newer it is, the registration and insurance will be higher as well. You'll also want to think about that trade-in value for your car if you ever want to trade it in the future. And so that's where like Kelley Blue Book can be helpful to provide that information. A warranty is a promise about the quality of the product and details regarding repairs or replacement. So it's helpful to know what the warranty is on the car that you're about to purchase. Sometimes they come with a warranty, and it depends if it's new or used, or you could purchase an extended warranty. That's something that you'll have to evaluate and do research to see if it's really worth it. And so for me, I have not purchased extended car warranty because I did not see it necessary. Mostly because I tended to buy cars that were reliable and I wasn't concerned about major repairs, which turned out to be just fine. Now, if you are buying a car that might have some issues with maintenance and repairs, that extended warranty might be helpful. And then there are lemon laws for you to be aware of. This helps protect consumers who buy a really bad car. They regulate sales terms, purchase cancellation conditions, and warranty requirements. And they're enforced on both the federal and state level in the US. So it's helpful to check out what the lemon laws are for your state that you plan on buying the vehicle from. So buying a car can be a stressful or enjoyable experience, depending on how you feel about negotiating and the purchase process. But I find that the more information and the more knowledge you have and the more prepared you are, the less stressful that experience will be.